Welcome to the Cerebral Palsy Perspective. I'm normally your co-host, Daryl Perry. But today, much like what Chad did in last week's episode, I'm going to go through my story. Um, and we think it's important for you guys really to understand where we're coming from. I think if you're listening to this podcast, especially on a regular basis, you have some idea. You're either navigating life with cerebral palsy yourself or someone close to you that 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 you love and care about is. So there's a lot of stuff that you probably like. Yeah, I um, totally get. But everybody's experience is a little different, just like everybody's case of CP is a little bit different. So for me, I was born about I think 3 months premature, and um, I was diagnosed with CP when I was just about 2 years old. I was missing benchmarks, crawling, walking, things like that. And I will, I've always been able to keep my life into perspective because at a very early age, I knew that my parents had a similar, um, uh, I guess, pregnancy and birth situation to what I was born in previous to me, and my sibling lived a matter of days, and I'm sitting here talking to you right now. So anything that I do is really a bonus. And when I was a little kid, and I went through a lot of physical therapy, met with orthopedics. I really, overall, net have had a great supportive team of medical professionals, and really a supportive family as well. And when I was a little kid, my my goal in life, I used to tell my mom, was that I wanted to go ahead and get through life so I could go and be in heaven with my brother. Um, but my family was very supportive, very encouraging. Um, my mom took me to all my appointments at times during my childhood. She was working at times. She stayed home with me at times. She was worked part time, full time. Went back to school when I was a kid. Got her associate's degree, and then back in the '80s, so like you could get a degree and work in your field of study and like actually have a career in it. What she was able to do. My dad actually worked in production for some plants, but um, for chemical plants. And when I was young, I think when I was 4 years old, he went to another job, and one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, was because the insurance was better. And I had a lot of when I was a kid, I had surgeries, and I had again PT and all that. So I mean, my parents have been very supportive, worked very hard, um, and I think have always like encouraged my curiosity and my imagination. I will say, for anybody that grew up in the '80s, I also attribute a lot of my imagination to Muppet Babies. I used to love the Muppet Babies show, um, where they would like just basically go on these entire adventures that they would imagine. I always loved when Gonzo would open the closet door and there would be just some kind of crazy chaos behind the door. Um, but I mentioned that because like for anybody listening, if you're a parent of a kid with CP, um, and if they have an interest in something, just encourage it, no matter what it is. That I think you can make a life and make a living around anything. But even more importantly than that, if you have something that you're naturally curious about and that you like, um, you just you just lean into that. And and if you're somebody with CP, if you have an interest, and I don't, even if you're an adult, and I'm talking decades into adulthood, you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. If you have an interest in something, lean into it. lean into it. I mean, it may or may not be a career thing for you, but hobbies are important. Happiness is important. A lot of what Chad and I talk about on this podcast is just having a really realistic, but still an optimistic outlook on life. And it's hard. Um, I've been in, I mean, I'm in, you guys, again, like you know this chronic pain every day of my life, work to manage it, things that I found to manage it. Some things work better than others, but like it's always there. Growing up, always wanted to fit in. Had a mixed bag experience. Chad and I have talked about what it was like growing up in the 80s and 90s with CP. Um, and and again, like there were some comments when we were talking about that. People were like, "Well, you grew up in the 80s and 90s. Try growing up in the 70s. Try growing up in the 50s." It was worse, right? I mean, it's been tough, and life is tough. Life is hard. Um, I one of my orthopedics, because this ties into a lot of what I'm about, um, introduced me to regular exercise, like gym workouts, as a supplement to physical therapy. This was also the orthopedic that wanted to do the Botox injections, and we did them in my quads and my hip flexors at various times. And this was in 1996, 1997. So like it was prevalent, I guess, but still relatively new. Using Botox for that type of stuff. And but he the way he packaged exercise and kind of cultivated this curiosity that I had. I've stuck with it, not just for my own life staying active, but I became a sort of I worked in a gym during college. This was back in the early 2000s after getting into the fitness stuff when I was a teenager. Um, and I worked at a gym. I loved when I sold memberships at a gym, but I also did some training there as well, trained some people. But what I really liked is when people would come in and sign up and they weren't really confident in themselves, and like maybe they hadn't been in a while, and they're trying to get back into doing this, or maybe they've never been at all. They were kind of like looking down at their shoes when they would come in, but then after a matter of weeks, not a long period of time, weeks, maybe a month or two at most, like they're carrying themselves different. And I've always loved that about health and fitness. I think it's a springboard. It's a micro section of our life where we can cultivate, um, things like consistency, things like really working through, showing up and putting in effort for goals that take a longer time to achieve. Like things aren't going to be instant, but it also gives you time to really connect with yourself and appreciate yourself, and to um, appreciate not only the body that you have, but the person underneath. In a world where people aren't going to understand you, they're going to look at you and even if it's, I often will say like 90% of the people don't care. Like they're just living their own life. But then it's the other 10%. It's the ones that stare. It's the ones that gawk. It's the ones that make comments. It's the ones that ask the craziest questions. And you're just like, I'm trying to live my day. Like I'm just trying to do my thing and live my life and go day by day. Um, and but that stuff collectively adds up. Like 1 out of 10 people over the course of years and decades of a lifetime, it gets heavy on you. And I think you really, it's I think in much of the world, um, we're we're thought that we're like there's always things telling us that we're not enough. And I think we are, if we can connect with ourselves and cultivate a different point of view of how we see ourselves, we are enough and we can go in any direction we want. Um, I know for me, yes, there are things that I will, that my body isn't necessarily built for. Um, Actually, like running the Spartan races that Chad does, my body is built different. I'm very active, but I do different things. But I also have tried and tested a lot of things over the years too. Um, I did get certified as a personal trainer. I did teach adaptive group fitness classes because I mentioned all the resources that I had as a kid. Um, but a lot of adults with CP, when we turn 18, a lot of that stuff dries up. A lot of it dries up. So my thing initially was I wanted to do adaptive group fitness classes for um, adults that had CP, and I taught a class for over a year um, over at United Cerebral Palsy, and um, even after they were acquired by somebody, I still taught the class. Um, or our local chapter was, excuse me, our local chapter was acquired. Um, then from there, I just I test and I try and taste things even as an adult. The adaptive group fitness classes led me to teaching other group fitness classes because that was a huge thing at the time. This is going back about 10 or 12 years, which led to me working as a personal trainer, a certified personal trainer in a studio. It led to me being working as a trainer, doing in-home training. But a lot of times, I mean, people slam figuratively. I don't think literally. I think figuratively. I had the door slammed in my face a lot of times. People didn't get it. There was one studio where the guy did get it. I just didn't. I didn't. He gave me a time frame to build a book of business, and I lived. I wasn't able to cut it. I didn't cut it in the time that we talked about. He still gave me the chance. And anybody that has given me a chance, like I appreciate it. And, it's probably a good like that studio that like there's a lot of failures. Sometimes it's because other people have shut the door on my face, but sometimes it's things that I didn't do. But you other things that I've done. We've got a big like I live in the Cincinnati area, so the Flying Pig race is huge here. Um, I joined a run walk group as a lead, as like a running coach. I was the couch to 5K coach, and then because people would progress, like we really didn't have. There wasn't anybody. We had people that were taking the lead for half marathons and marathons, but like I did 5K. Well, sometimes people usually from 5K they go to 10K before they go to half marathons. So I went and did a 10K. Took me a long time to do it, probably 2 hours or around 2 hours. Um, but but I did it, and then because I'm a big believer of like if I'm gonna say or do something and lead others to it, I will have to have done it myself at least once. But I was a running coach. I never would have thought that, and I coached dozens of people that didn't think they could do it. They got off the couch and we did the routes. I put the routes together. We did things. They continued to push through. They did everything they could. Um, and I was scared. I didn't think like who's gonna like I'm a punchline as a running coach. I used to think that as a personal trainer. Well, who's gonna I used to be like I was very nervous demonstrating lower body exercises, squats and deadlifts, demonstrating those for people scared me. Not coaching other people through it or putting it in a program and making sure that they're set up for success when they do it, but like me demonstrating the exercise. And that kept me from actually doing a lot of in person stuff for a long time as a personal trainer. Now, and while I was doing this, I went to school for marketing. I have a degree in marketing. I worked in sales, advertising sales, actually, when I first got out of college for the Yellow Pages. That's how old I am. Uh, um, and then I worked in sales for an e-commerce company, and then I started working in marketing. And I started at a very small agency. I was a project manager. I also did a fair amount of copywriting there and traditional copywriting because we were doing like postcards um, and phone scripts and things like that. Things that you in 2016, 2017, most agencies weren't doing anymore. But I liked getting the reps in and a skill that there was a lot of nuanced stuff that I saw with all that. that really just helped me. I think the nuance matters. I think nuance in our life matters. I think the details that make things unique to us really matter. It's part of our story and it's part of who we are. Um, but I take my background in marketing. So and then I did all of it. I worked for a couple of agencies. I did freelance because everybody that works in marketing is like, wait a minute, I can make more money doing freelance. I did freelance, but I also had the corporate marketing job too. And the corporate role I had, there's a lot of stuff systematically that I looked at there that in my own like world of Your Level Fitness. That's the company that I run. I run we'll call it I used to just call it a fitness services company because like whatever service, whether it was group, one-on-one, like I had experience doing all of it. But it's basically a fitness company, product services, all of it now. But my main thing is I want people to appreciate the body that they have. And more than that even is appreciate the person underneath. I think the fitness industry markets against our insecurities around our bodies and who we are as people. And I think the world at large gets sold this bill of goods that, whoever we are, we're not good enough. And I want you, no matter what your situation is, like it's understandable to be angry. It's understandable to be bitter. I will tell you, for bitterness that I have felt in my life and bitterness that I have seen other people carry with them for life, it is not worth it. So I understand the anger. I understand the bitterness. I understand the frustration. But I think the way that we make change is we find commonality. We find things to connect with people on, and share your interest. You know, I like in the CP groups on Facebook sometimes, like, actually, I'll do this again today. Like, make sure I record this. I'll say that, I'm so much more than cerebral palsy. And then I'll list things that I'm interested in or things that I do. I talk a lot about the Your Level Fitness stuff here and tying it into body image and self-appreciation and self-love, because I think it's a message that everybody needs to hear. But those of us in the CP community, especially, and for me, like, think as big as you possibly can. Like, I am on a mission. Like, I look at it as, in my 40s, being the person that I am, I want to change how people view health and fitness. A lot of times people get into health and fitness because they don't like who they are. They don't like what they see. But I want you to appreciate who you are and what you see, and then do all the things that you want. Like, seriously, bust your butt, do all of the things, but do it from a place of loving yourself. So, and there is a lot more to me than cerebral palsy. And given my background and given my experience of all the stuff that I do, like, if you follow me online, you know that I have different elements of who I am that I talk about different places. But it's all done from a place that I want people to become more comfortable with who they are and appreciate who they are. So, so that's what I have. That is my CP story. If I always want to hear, I always love to hear thoughts. Chad and I both do. But like, on any of the stuff that you heard here, probably the best thing to do is to email me. That's the best way to reach me. That's Daryl at yourlevelfitness.com. That's DARYL at yourlevelfitness.com. Yeah, and you can go to the website. That's yourlevelfitness.com. You can also check out darylperry.com, DARYLPERRY.com. That's kind of my portfolio for everything that I have. So that is my story. I would love to hear your thoughts. Would love to hear your feedback on things. And Chad and I always want to hear what you guys think of what we're doing here, because we're really building some momentum, and we're flexing our creative muscle here, so to speak, with all the different formats that we're doing. So we're having a really good time. I know some of you guys are going to be sharing your stories with us, and we're in the process of getting a lot of that stuff set up, and it's been wonderful, because we've started this, and this came from a couple of conversations. You never know what's going to happen when you take a chance on yourself. You never do. So yeah, so that's what I have for you. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.